And welcome to a completely informal, completely off the cuff little chat. So here's what happened. Initially, this week's video was going to be a Ben's junk on this guy. And oh, whoop-de-doo, Benny Boy got a remote control. But this is a current reproduction of the Pioneer service remotes for most Pioneer Laserdisc players. And I'd been trying to get my hands on an actual original one for quite some time, but I don't think I've seen one go for under $100. And then I saw this company called Anderic, and that they were making reproductions of all these odd esoteric little remotes, and they were $15. And I figured, well, it would just be a plaything anyway, so I'll pick up the reproduction. And to its credit, it does get me into the test mode on my Pioneer CLD D605. However, when I finally get it in there, I didn't realize it was quite as intricate, the whole service mode thing, so I guess I'm going to have to find a service manual or something and just play with it for a while and see what it does. And of course, with these things, you can, if you've got a calibration disc, you can work on calibrating the laser, and you can do actual service on your player. But really, the main reason I picked this up initially was because allegedly these things can help you with some of the more odd, esoteric, kind of laser discs. Stuff like the early Discovision titles and industrial titles, especially the General Motors titles, which ran on their own coding system, or just a different one at least. But anyway, it got me with Laserdiscs on the brain, so I've picked out a stack of ones that I was hoping this might help me out with, and also just ones that are notable in some way or another, sometimes just for the packaging, sometimes for the discs themselves, but let's just go through it. So right here at the top of the stack, we've got what I believe is one of the very first initial launch Laserdiscs from late 1978, early 1979. And these early ones, I kind of get a weird kick out of the packaging here. Now, most of these early Discovisions, you'd think this was all one piece, but as I found out, it's actually a sticker. The title's a sticker, so it was a stock backing with a sticker being plastered over it. And the later ones, and there is a later one in here, they finally made it completely flat. But I don't know if it was a cost-cutting thing, but it runs all the way up, this kind of leisure suit-looking thing, and up into the spine, and you got this huge spine, and you'd think this was a box set, but this is actually not only a single disc, but it's a one-sided program. It's still a dual layer disc, but yeah, it's kind of overkill. But I call these the pizza boxes because they open like a pizza box. And also, back before the paper sleeves and poly sleeves, they came in this kind of fabric. I'm not sure how to describe it. I guess it's a felt sort of thing. And indeed, there's a layer of very hard styrofoam down in there too. And unfortunately, this box is starting to fall apart on me, and it's starting to bubble. The glue is starting to give. But anyway, here's the disc, and I've done a video on Discovision dead sides before. So Laserdiscs generally have two layers, and early on they would, instead of before the more common dead sides where you'd stick it in your player and you'd be greeted with a picture of a turtle lying on its shell saying program material recorded on the other side of the disc or something like that. Initially, they would just take another layer and of a a factory reject or a title that the studio decided they didn't want to release at the last second, and they would just slap it on and then spray some lacquer on it. And then you can get the lacquer off and usually play these things. Again, I've done a whole video on these before, and I've got a whole episode's worth of these again, so I guess I'll have to do another one sometime. But yeah, there's the deal. And sometimes they have kind of a glue issue. I've got some of them that are kind of green. I've heard them referred to as the green slime. But yeah, you got the lacquer on one side and a nice clear disc on the other. But I just, that amuses me to no end. I guess I'm really easily amused. But there's also something else that's very notable about this specific disc, at least my copy. And that is that these early Discovision titles, all these old Discovision discs have this wonderful, and I mean that genuinely, this terrific opening bumper sequence. Very nicely done, very classy, and for 1978-79, super duper high tech. And unfortunately, a lot of more recent players, and I use the term loosely, they pick up in the middle of the bumper when you stick in the disc, and you can't access it all the way. And that's because these things run on, if it's the CAV format, it's 30 minutes per side, and you can go frame by frame always on it. It actually starts before frame 0. So it actually runs off into the fringes. But this one somehow managed to get the whole bumper actually playable. And it doesn't quite start at the beginning when you pop it in, but I can use the frame by frame on my machine and get it back to just that right point and play the whole thing. Unfortunately, this has some pretty good rot to it, and it needs cleaned too. I didn't realize that the first time I put this in my player. But I will run some pertinent clips at the end of this video. But yeah, finally found one with the whole terrific sequence and the kind of spirograph looking thing, and you'll see it later. Now, here's another one where they've just stuck on the disc, but at this point they were down to more of a record sleeve style. However, they were still packing it with the same old hard styrofoam, and they'd also gone over to poly sleeves, which some of them have crumbled. The Dead Sides video I did last year had, when I first got it, the whole poly-lined sleeve had literally dried out and was just crumbling in my hand, and I wound up putting it in a new sleeve. But yeah, this is one that's also currently residing in the future Dead Sides stash. And I may have to play with that later. And here's another one with the sticker. Same spine, same record style. However, now we get up into the multi-disc sets. Now you're getting into more of a packaging that feels a little more appropriate. Again, I'm still kind of amused at the notion that the spine is really on the top, like you're going to store it that way. And then here's one that was already on the Discovision Dead Sides video. But this one was a problem in that someone had tried to clear the lacquer off before I did. And in doing so, not sure if I'm going to get this to show up on camera. But yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. But there is some clouding here mid-disc. I can't seem to make the light reflect just right. You can kind of see the edges, the ridges of it, but somebody was a little too aggressive with the alcohol and it seeped down in there and it clouded and it screwed up the disc, and it gives me a P5 error when I play it. So yeah, it's not an issue of my player can't handle it. As far as the player is concerned, it's just it's junk. And then we get on to some of the last of these designs. So now they're not doing the sticker or the weird spine anymore. They've got it in a more traditional layout. They're still doing things like or they're not doing things like the foam anymore, but they're being more efficient. So this is actually a triple disc set here. And then coming out of Discovision land, I've got easily an episode's worth of test discs lined up again, so I'll have to get to that sometime. But this one is notable because it's in the squeeze format, and I still need to figure out how I can reliably get the full widescreen, like you're seeing in this video, 16:9 aspect ratio to work when I capture the footage. So that's a little technical hurdle I need to clear before I cover this. And indeed, when I do, this thing is so loaded with music that I may have to just run the pertinent parts of it silent when I do. But I'll show you what I've got so far. It's really more still Squish-O-Vision. I'll have to see if I can't figure out how to stretch that out. And of course, it's all in Japanese, so I am totally lost. And I guess I'll just have to sit there with my phone and the Google Translate app and try and decode some of this. All the voiceovers on this disc are in Japanese, so this is a definite challenge that I need to overcome. Now, I was talking about industrial stuff earlier, and I've got a couple of them. These are both from about 1986, I think. Actually, I know this is from 86, but I think this is from about the same time. But these things, as I mentioned, they are supposed to play in an industrial player. I think it's the 7820, where it will jump back and forth to quizzes and such for somebody that's learning how to work on the car. So in this case, we're talking about suspension and alignment, that kind of stuff. But at the beginning of these discs, you can play these to a point in most discs, but they're going to play out of order. So when you put one of these in, you get this blast of code, like on an old dial-up modem, and that's called a data dump. And on one of those, real specific industrial players, you'll watch a segment and then you'll have to take a quiz, and you'll punch in, say, the corresponding number on the remote, and it'll tell you if you're right or wrong. So it's not like I recently covered some of those Laserdisc games, like Mystery Disc, where you have to punch in usually a 5-figure frame number to figure out if you were right or wrong on something. And it's actually a lot more efficient and just all around better on here. But boy, I haven't seen any of those players come up for sale at all at any price. And these things are also just wonderfully amusing. I mean, they're kind of boring given the subject matter, but they do occasionally try and sprinkle in things like dialogue, like dramatic dialogue between a host and a technician. And the Ford ones got some cartoon sort of things on there meant to, I guess, act as a metaphor for whatever you're trying to work on. It's really strange. I'll have to play some of these. But, and that's what I'm going to do here. I think I've talked long enough now. So, this week's video didn't quite turn out the way I planned, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something, and I will revisit this stuff at some point. And I'll talk to you again soon.
Some quarterbacks occupy a field. It's living a lifetime in a few short years.
In the beginning, there were feet. Early man used them often for finding breakfast.
But today, modern man carries his eggs in many different kinds of suspension baskets, all with the objectives of providing smooth rides, responsive handling, and accurate steering. And that covers all the angles of alignment. As we continue, we'll look at a recommended diagnostic procedure you can use to pinpoint and solve the causes of many handling and tire wear concerns. Now, let's see how smart you are about angles of alignment. To accurately align the front, you should start at the back with rear toe. This assures the driver of a straight steering wheel as the vehicle travels straight down the road. Remember, the coil spring in the McPherson strut controls the vehicle's ride height.
Hello, I'm George Nelson, service engineer here at Jeep Eagle Division. I'm glad you could join us for this presentation on the Eagle Premier Climate Control System. There's quite a number of special features on the system that you've got to be aware of to properly service it. I'll be assisted on this by one of our service engineering technicians, Rick Smith. Hi. Let's move on now to the plenum assembly.
Hang on, George. You forgot something.
Oh, what's that?
Oh, that the air control module also has a memory which can be used when performing the onboard climate control system diagnostics, which we'll cover in Part 2.
Good point. Now, let's turn our attention to the plenum assembly.
Now, can't check AC clutch operation. Now, can't check AC control module, can't check AC clutch operation. Now, check AC clutch up. Then you'll see all the lights come on, indicating you'll see all. I can press now the AC. Now you're ready. Now you're ready. Okay. Now you're ready. Okay. Now you're ready to access any codes that you're ready to access any codes that ready to access any active.